Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Louise.
This book is so good. I Would Meet You Anywhere by Susan Kiyo. It's a memoir, and we're on the chapter. We're on page 26, Searching. We did two
Mm,
chapters.
Two chapters. They go so fast.
They go so fast, and it's so good, and it's a book I want to continue. So I'm
I
like,
know.
darn
I
it.
know. It's hard to just not read. I liked, so this chapter, the first chapter of
Mhm.
what we read today was is searching. And right out the gate in the first paragraph talking about like kind of
Yeah.
hiding it,
Yes.
the guilt of, and she's young. Like
She's
what,
so
in her
young
first
and
year of college or something, 19, 18?
19, I think, and
Yeah.
tackling it. Hmm.
And going into the city by herself, not telling her parents what she's doing, going to stay with it really reminded me, a lot of this reminded me of when I first moved to New York and like
I'm sure.
the little glamorous, it's a crappy little apartment where,
Yeah.
like the bathroom, you have brush your teeth while you're sitting on the toilet. And her friends were so sophisticated, even though they were only a couple of years older
They
than
had
her.
jobs and worked in publishing and yeah, and two male friends. One of her friends was from her church. And what I liked about that too. He didn't out her.
Yeah.
They were super interested in her getting to know who she was and like come stay with us and took care of her. And they went out at night. And I don't know. It was neat.
Yeah.
That part was
And the
neat.
and walked and took her to the Alma meeting. So her whole point of going there was
Yes.
going to the Alma meeting. That she'd been, and
So
the way she described it, it reminded me of like an AA
that's what
meeting,
I
and it,
felt like.
yeah, with all the literature and the coffee and the emotions, and yeah, it
And
really was so reminiscent of
and there was a
my
woman. Yeah, I
19 in New
bet.
York.
I was thinking about you actually through it. There was a woman who sat down next to her and she's like, "Are you an adoptee?" And she's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
yes."
what
Like,
like I am I like no one had ever called her that.
yeah. And she's like, "Are you searching?" I guess so. Like it's
Yeah.
but it was empowering for her because she read that book when she was 13 by
Uh-huh.
the founder
And
of Alma. And like
and it was like in her head for all these years. And
she's pretty impressive, Susan, because I was not
yeah,
this like bold. It's cool.
I
It's
it didn't even occur to me at that age
mm-mm.
to do something like that.
And then, so here's the other part that we get into how she goes to Spencer Chapin.
Ugh.
And this was interesting. She goes to the place where Spencer Chapin's the agency, and she pictures her parents going there for 10 years because they really wanted them to adopt an Asian baby. They were like
Right.
discouraged from having a white baby.
Yes. So they had to wait they were on a waiting list for 10 years.
Yeah. And the woman is so awful, like so
Yeah. So
patronizing.
the first social worker that had
Yeah.
actually
Mm-hmm.
put them together, and there was a picture of her dad with this, or the social worker holding Susan. And
Yeah.
yeah, and this one, just like the way she described her guarding the
Holding the
records.
file tightly.
That's the thing, because I went through that rage in the last few months of people having information about me that's me and
Yeah.
not sharing it with me. And
Yeah.
it feels like it is a violation.
It
It's a
is a
violation of our human
violation.
rights. I
Yeah.
mean, it is a violation of
She's
our human
sitting
rights.
across from her and she doesn't let her look at it. She has to take notes about it while she
Yeah,
looks through 14 pages or something, but only reads her enough for like half a page of notes
right. Her
from
non-identifying information.
redacted information. It pisses
And
me
then
off.
and then she found out that her mother
Mm.
was actually 27 when she gave
And a
birth,
professional.
but wouldn't tell her what state, wouldn't even tell her where she was born. She's like,
No,
"Well, wasn't I born in New York? What do you mean?" She's from the Midwest. And then
yeah.
the social worker's like, I can't tell you that information. I mean, just
I mean,
outrageous.
it's outrageous. And Susan was the dutiful girl. Nice. Thank
Hmm.
you very much. Even though her talk in her head is totally different.
Yeah.
It turned
Well,
me
I
off
mean, because
so
I mean,
much.
every adoptee,
Yeah.
what could we do? There were a few, and we didn't have ways of communicating with each other
No,
outside, like she found this Alma meeting and went to it, but it wasn't like now with social media and you could
no. Even now
scream
we
out
do a lot
about
of
it. And
apologizing and like,
yeah,
oh, okay, can you help me?
yeah,
It's it's
I know.
it is a human rights violation not to have your information. It's beyond bizarre to me still to this day. And I think how
I
it wasn't bizarre to me for years. It's weird
no,
that it
I know.
wasn't.
I know. I was talking to somebody, uh, and he's like, "Oh, both my parents are adopted." And I said, "Oh, well,
Mm,
what was your childhood like?" That, sometimes adoptees don't really understand their issues until later in
mhm.
life. Because, "Oh, it was perfectly wonderful. They were happy in the night." And I said, "Did they find their biological parents?" He goes, "No, they had no interest in doing that. They had happy childhoods." I'm like, "Well, these are not two, both
Yeah.
things can be true. You could have
Yes.
had a happy child and still want to know where you're from." But
Yeah.
it made me think,
Yeah.
I
It's
forgot
on.
somebody said at one point, you're either in the matrix or you're out of the matrix. Like,
God forbid you question anything.
yeah,
Like, well, and then she meets, and then the next chapter, one of these things is not like the other. I love the names of her
isn't that the
chapters.
chapter we were just
Oh
talking?
yeah, we were talking
Yeah,
about that. I kind of
yeah.
jumped ahead. I'm so sorry. Because that like struck me. But her big thing too is that she wasn't all the way Japanese. And so
Right.
people that saw her, just laymen or whatever, oh, she's Japanese. But to her, it was a big deal to be. And then one thing, she listened to people's stories. That part struck me, probably how AA is, but people talking about horrible situations in their adoptions, right? What we were just talking about before we got
Mm-hmm.
on with abuse and neglect and all sorts of things. And she was thinking, I had no idea. Like, I mean, okay, thank God
Yeah,
for
I mean,
my
how,
parents, right?
again, how would you have any
No.
of that information? But like, there wouldn't have been any way of knowing. I did think one thing I highlighted, because she's like, well, where was
Mm,
I? She found out she stayed in foster care for 5 weeks. Then she said, years later, I learned that
uh,
foster homes were way stations where children were fed but not coddled, where they were conditioned to quell their own crying. Docile babies, the agencies learned, were more satisfactory products. My parents, like many others, were pleased and astonished that I was such a good baby who never cried.
yep. And she found the one thing she did see was the feeding schedule when she went through her mother's papers.
Yeah.
And she did have that kind of schedule of like feed, put down, like
Hmm.
because
And
they
it
gave
said
it to
they
her. They
it
passed it
said
on to her.
she liked sitting in the corner and looking at the family.
Sitting on the couch, like propped
Like,
up.
what? She's like 5 weeks.
And what family? I mean, how bizarre.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's yeah. It's a great read. I hope you're reading along with us and make sure if you're not, you can still get the book. Read it with us or later, but it's 30% off on our website. So,
Yes. Get it. So the next episode, boy, these are small chapters. So we'll be
mhm.
reading, um, I mean, should we do three
We could do
chapters?
3. Yeah, because
Let's
I
do the
hate
next.
ending it.
Yeah, let's do the next. Well, that's a pretty long one. Yeah, let's do the next three. What do you need?
Hmm.
A small rhyme and what I did over spring break.
Yep, we'll read up to page 58
Yep.
for next time. So join us.
Yep. And Louise,
See you in a minute.
see you in a minute.